I'm Ted, a 45-year-old man. In 2020, I tragically lost my partner, Diana, to COVID-19. A common friend introduced me to Kathy, a 38-year-old woman who had previously been married and divorced due to a difficult relationship with her ex-husband, who was described as an alcoholic and abusive. Relying on my friend's advice, I began dating Kathy. However, as time passed, I started to notice significant differences in our political views. While I hold traditional values when it comes to family, life, and gender politics, Kathy leans strongly towards the left. Before I could get married, my friend who introduced me to Kathy suggested that I ask for a prenup agreement before we get married, and I was fine with it. Gave me a feeling of a movie star. I laughed at the idea, but anyways, not that it would impact my life. We decided to get married after just 3 months of dating. Kathy was quite dedicated to following left-wing politicians and held some strong political views. While she occasionally tried to sway me to her side, my commitment to my traditional family values kept me grounded. We engaged in friendly debates on various political topics from time to time, and in these discussions, I often found that she struggled to respond when I presented factual arguments. Fortunately, our love life remained relatively unaffected by her political leanings, allowing us to focus on the aspects of our relationship that we shared. I was employed as a manager in a software company, which provided me with a steady and comfortable income. Kathy, however, came from a more modest background and made the choice to stay at home and manage the household. On occasion, I would return home to find Kathy engrossed in watching news debates, and it wasn't unusual for her to greet me with angry and unwelcome comments stemming from her frustration with the world. These instances added another layer of complexity to our relationship, as our differing political views and her emotional reactions to world events created tension in our household. As 2 more years passed, I believed that we were living our lives and enjoying marital bliss. However, there were significant developments that I failed to mention. Kathy's left-leaning political views had only intensified over time. She became a strong advocate for women's liberation and empowerment. I suggested to Kathy that she could consider working to prove herself and contribute financially, but her response surprised me. She firmly believed that working and taking care of the household was my responsibility. While I could understand her perspective, I couldn't help but notice the shift from advocating empowerment and gender equality to embracing more traditional gender roles, which happened rather quickly. It appears that there were more changes in Kathy's behavior over time. She began spending a lot of time on her phone, engaging with various social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram, which seemed to consume her entire day. On certain occasions, I would come home to find that dinner hadn't been prepared, and when I inquired about it, she simply stated that she was busy. I was left puzzled, as cooking was one of her responsibilities. That night, Kathy did engage in an intimate encounter with me, but it felt notably different from our usual interactions. She displayed a more dominating attitude, which was a significant departure from our usual dynamics. Coming home early one day, I was surprised to find my wife engaged in an enthusiastic conversation with our single, gym-loving 27-year-old neighbor. As soon as she saw me, she abruptly ended their discussion and hurried over to me, greeting me with a passionate, full-blown French kiss, complete with the whole tongue thing. It was entirely unexpected, and it felt like she wanted our neighbor to witness the display. This left me feeling both surprised and concerned about the message she might have been trying to convey. It was a departure from her usual behavior. I was taken aback by the passionate kiss and my wife's reaction when I questioned her about it. Her response, a simple smile followed by a question if I didn't like it, left me speechless. I decided to change and process what had just happened. In the days that followed, I noticed more changes in her behavior. Kathy started working out and became significantly more active in our sex life, with a frequency I hadn't experienced before. Then, one morning while having my coffee, I noticed Kathy was still in bed, and her phone was left on the kitchen table. Curiosity got the better of me, and I picked up her phone, finding a video featuring a famous former adult movie actor offering tips for marriage.
Oh, we're comparing stats. Baby girl doesn't know that I am Tom Brady at this game. Married at 18, divorced at 21. Second marriage, married at 25, divorced at 28. Third engagement, engaged at 29, ended it at 30, but I kept the ring. I'm still keeping Tom Brady on his toes. We should not be afraid to leave these men. We are not stuck with these people. Marriage is not a sanctimonious thing. It is paperwork. It's something, it's a commitment you make to someone. But if you feel like you're not getting anything from that commitment and you're trying, you gotta go. You gotta go. You have to go. I know it's difficult to fill out paperwork and to make appointments and to do all of these things, but this is your fucking life. Do you want to be stuck with someone? Period. Do you want to be
What would a woman who had her legs open for the world to see will suggest you get divorced? For heaven's sake, she has multiple failed marriages, and now she advises women to get divorced just like her. She has earned money in from her career in the corn industry. She has money from her multiple divorce settlements. What does a common woman, who just is a housewife or just works a normal job, has? Does she have the financial security as the Crown star? I was disgusted and wanted to talk to my wife. I decided to go to work and have this discussion with my wife tonight. So, I got dressed and left for work. In the office, I could not work and I wanted to quickly return home. So I asked my boss for a day off and quickly left. I reached home, and as I was walking towards my front door, I found it open and I walked in and I could hear moans coming from my bedroom and my heart started beating fast and I was not sure what is going on. I walked towards my room and found my wife naked on top of the neighbor guy. I was shocked and stunned. I somehow gathered myself and managed to get my phone out to start filming their act. They were so involved that they did not notice my presence and I walked out quickly. I rushed out of the house and went for a long drive and kept driving till I reached the nearest beach. I stood there and let the wind wash my face. My tears had dried and I was desperate to get my life sorted. After a few hours, I called my lawyer and he asked me to come and meet him. I was fortunate to get an appointment the same day and I shared the video with him. The lawyer assured me that adultery is a ground for divorce and he would try and save as much money from being split as possible. I then told my lawyer that I do have a prenup. As per the prenup agreement, if I cheat on my wife, I would have to let go of 70% of all my assets. If she cheats, I would not give her anything. Well, I now started to thank my friend who suggested me to sign a prenup agreement. The lawyer asked me to cut all contacts with my wife and asked me to leave my house till she is evicted from my house. I discussed with my lawyer and after some discussion I sent her a message stating that I was going out of town for an emergency meeting and will not be able to be at home. I went to a local motel and meanwhile my wife kept calling me and I kept ignoring her calls. In the meanwhile, my lawyer also hired a private investigator to do a background check for Kathy. What came out was nothing short of shocking. I knew she was previously divorced. I was told her previous husband was alcoholic and abusive. However, what came out that it was the other way around. She used to work as paid protester for the left politicians. She used to charge money to show up and protest for political reasons. Once her husband asked her to stop, she framed him of being an alcoholic. It turned out that the guy never drank alcohol. He was beaten up by Kathy and once cops were called to stop her. They got divorced after she had busted his head open in one of their arguments. She robbed the guy dry and left him broken. I felt so lucky and relieved that I will be saving everything that I have worked for. After 5 days, I met the lawyer and he introduced me to the famed private investigator. We decided to serve my wife that very day. He called the local police station and spoke to his friend, who agreed to help us. We drove to my house and again found my door open. We all walked inside and once again found my wife in action with the neighbor. This time I was not silent, called her name, and she was shocked to see 4 people standing in her bedroom watching her get pumped. She started shouting and hurled abuses and crying. She kept swinging between blaming and calling me names to saying how sorry she is and want forgiveness. The PI was filming all of this. The sheriff walked up and handed Kathy the divorce papers and said, "You have been served." I then broke my silence and asked Kathy to get dressed and she has 2 hours to leave my house. She started shouting and said that I was abusive and I have been abusive with her throughout the marriage. I kept quiet and my lawyer then spoke up asking her to connect with him in case she wants any communication with me. I asked the sheriff to help ensure that Kathy leaves my house. He asked Kathy to hurry up and in case she has any complaints she can connect with the local police. Kathy got dressed and packed her bags and walked into the neighbor's house. I slept in the guest room that night and next day sold my marital bed. I felt disgusted to use it anymore. I threw out some of Kathy's stuff in the garbage. I waited for the divorce proceedings to start. I got a call from my office asking me to go on a leave as there is a video going around where a woman is saying that I am an abusive man. I knew what is going on. Kathy wants to finish my reputation. If there is one thing a man loves apart from his family, it is his reputation. I was now going to fight back. A few days later, in the court, Kathy came up with all sorts of complaints that I used to physically assault her and torture her mentally. She stated that I hit her on multiple occasions and once it was so bad that she had to be hospitalized. Kathy was once hospitalized. She did fall in the bathroom and was hospitalized. I was a bit afraid how this will be seen by the court. My lawyer was an expert with taking care of such tactics. He proved with my digital presence that I was 20 miles away from my wife when she fell and was hospitalized. He produced the 911 call that was made by Kathy when she fell. Also, brought the 911 respondents as witness, who confirmed that I was not present and confirmed that Kathy did not mention that she was assaulted by anyone. Kathy also accused me of mental torture and how I used to make her feel that she is from a modest background and never used to care for even her minimum requirements. My lawyers produced all the credit card statements where Kathy had been shopping for her minimum requirements. Kathy even accused me of cheating on her and even bringing other women in our marital bed. This was once again busted as every visitor is documented on camera when they enter our gated housing society. There was no such evidence that I ever brought any guest to our house. It was now my turn. My lawyer produced 2 video evidences where Kathy was on bed with the neighbor guy. On watching this, Kathy stated that it was I who asked her to sleep with the neighbor and I wanted to watch. The judge had enough and asked Kathy to talk when she is asked to. My lawyer then went on to produce the viral video where Kathy was accusing me of being an abusive husband. He requested that this video be stopped and Kathy apologize for propagating false narrative. The court took into account all the present evidences and stated that Kathy did cheat on me and asked her to take her video down and offer an unconditional apology. Kathy then again stood up and asked for alimony and part in the property that I hold. The judge quickly reminded her that is she speaking out of line and need to sit quietly. The judge then asked Kathy to come forward. She walked up and the judge told her that it is clear that she has cheated and there is no evidence against me. She was then directed by the court to make another post with an unconditional apology for me and also told her that she will not get any money from me as it was part of the prenup agreement that she will not get any money if she cheated. Kathy was stunned and started crying in the courtroom. She started shouting at everyone in the court that she is being victimized as she is a woman. When the judge asked her to be quiet, she screamed, exactly like the weird leftist women who scream when they don't have anything logical to say. She was quickly taken into custody by the cops and taken out of the court. I was granted my divorce and the judge empathized with me, stating that we have seen good men losing their livelihood because of women like Kathy. He stated that he was happy for me that I was able to get all the evidence to prove my innocence and Kathy's crimes. I thanked him and then the court was closed. Everyone dispersed once it was over and Kathy later returned to my neighbor's house. Next day Kathy did post an apology as directed by the court and the other video was taken down. The neighbor later walked up to me and apologized and asked for my help to get Kathy out of his house. He stated that it was all good as long as Kathy was not living with him. Now it is a nightmare. He also mentioned that Kathy is forcing him to marry her as she got divorced because of him. I asked him to contact my lawyer for a way out. I gave his number and walked away. The lawyer asked him get his house covered with cameras and not let Kathy know about it. He asked him to video document every interaction with Kathy. Over the next 3 days he took Kathy out for vacation and gave the house to someone for covering every corner of his house with cameras and microphones. I did not interact a lot with the neighbor, just did not want to run into Kathy. A few days later I heard screams and loud noises from the neighbor's house. I was worried and called 911. Cops arrived and I was shocked to see what had transpired. I saw that the neighbor guy was covered in blood and Kathy, who now had short hair, dyed in blue, screaming that she is the victim, not the criminal. The cops were trying to handcuff her. She started fighting with the cops and even tried to run. She got tased and put in handcuffs. She was thrown in the cop car and taken to custody. I walked to the neighbor guy and asked him if he is okay. He hugged me and thanked me for the suggestion to connect with my lawyer. He later got restraining order against Kathy and cut all connections with her. I took him out for a drink and we really bonded well. He was a nice guy, just made a mistake for falling for Kathy. Well, I made the same mistake, so cannot blame him a lot. He introduced me to the gym and now after a year I am a gym buff and we are good friends. So now I have a great job, great health and good friends. I do get a lot of attention from women. I am reluctant to get into a serious relationship as of now. Hopefully I will get into one someday. Dear listener, if you have reached this far, please click on the subscribe button. It will be a great help.